Is the Bible just a rule book? The Old Testament is the Ten Commandments, the thou shalt not do this or that. And then the New Testament is all that just over again with Jesus. It's how to live, how to eat, how to pray, how to give, how to go to church. And it's all restricting freedom, and it's no fun, and that's because that's what people think. That's what some people think. Because they read verses on their own. They read verses that say Jesus commands things and God commands things, and they say, I don't want any part of that in my life. I enjoy my freedom. I don't want anything like that in my life. I want my freedom to make my own decisions. But is that really what the Bible is all about? Is that what we're saying this book is? It's just a rule book? Is that the kind of life that this book offers if we follow Jesus' commands? I don't think so. In John 15, starting in verse 10, Jesus says this: if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. So that your joy may be complete. That's why we obey his commands, for complete joy. Now, joy is different. Joy is different than just happiness. Happiness is that feeling of being happy. It's an emotion in the moment that we can feel. But joy goes much deeper than that. Joy is down at our core. It's a contentment. It's a satisfaction in all areas of life that really only God can give. And that's the kind of life that God offers for us when we obey him and obey his word. He offers us a life because he helps us navigate through a lot of the hardship that life brings. And so imagine if we lived in a world where we were all blind. We were all born blind. We couldn't see. But in this world, there were potholes everywhere. There were potholes everywhere, and we can't see. And so naturally, we fall into these potholes every now and then. We fall into these potholes, and let's say these potholes are like 6 feet deep. And so we fall in, and a lot of times we get hurt, and we can't get out and stuff, and it's this whole mess. But we've accepted it because it's just a part of life. It's our world. Now, imagine that Jesus comes on the scene and he says, I'll help you navigate around all these potholes since you can't see. If you hear my voice, you take my hand, listen to me, I'll help you navigate around it. Now, what would our response be? Would it be, you know what, that sounds really restricting? No, I like my freedom. No, that's listen to your voice, do what you say, take your hand. No, that sounds like a bunch of rules. No, of course not. We would know that it's for our good, what he's doing. That following Jesus leads to a better life. And a life of not just momentary happiness, but a life of satisfaction and contentment, a life of joy. And that's what Jesus is saying. You follow my commands, you follow me, and my joy will be in you, and your joy will be complete. But a lot of times, if I'm honest, I don't have that joy in my life. And I have to ask myself why. Is it that I'm not following his commands? A lot of times, you know what? It might be sin that comes into our lives. Sin is the number one thing that robs us of our joy. This is what James says about sin. In James 1, starting in 14, going through 15, it says, but each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, it gives birth to death. And it's this idea of a stillborn baby. The idea that something wonderful is on its way. And you have this expectation of something good, but then in the end, it's pain and it's loss. And it's that when sin, you're being tempted to sin, and it's enticing. You're being tempted it's like a fish in a lure. You think it's one thing, you think it's a piece of food, and you go and you're about to eat it, and you don't know that there's a hook there the whole time until it's too late, and then it drags you and it pulls you out. That's what happens every time. Satan has put distractions in our world that can rob us of our joy if we take the bait. But how do we get over this? How do we stay focused on Jesus? Colossians 3:2 says that we should set our minds on things above, not things on the earth. You know what that means? That might mean for you deleting certain apps on your phone. That might mean that you don't watch certain shows on TV or certain movies or listen to certain music. You know why? Because you know it causes you to sin. Certain things like that, they may seem harmless, they may seem like they're fine, but after that sin has taken root, it gives birth to death in our life, and it robs us of our joy. And we have a joy that's found in Christ, a joy, a satisfaction that we can have in life. And it would be a shame if we went through this life and we did not experience it, and we let it go for something that was imitation, that was cheap, and that was only for the moment. Avoid the potholes, listen to Jesus, and take his hand.